Book 9th. 1. Joram the son of Medinus has described in his commentaries the crimes committed by Joram, and the multitude of cities and colonies and men and ships and chariots over which he ruled. Sanchuniathon says that after the death of the king, Joram's son Sidicus reigned for 32 years. Sidicus therefore ordered those who were nourished in Belirus's womb to go to Tyre, because they were being effeminate in the city of the Sidonians. For not far from Sidon Belirus had founded a school where the sons of priests were instructed in the sacred rites and in the art of law and medicine. But when Diphus, who had reached extreme old age and was now a wandering mind, was officiating as prelate, the disciples committed many crimes for fun and amusement, which can be understood from the commentaries which Barmerchabas wrote about the deeds of the Sidonians, who himself was admitted to the school at the age of 18 and was taught the knowledge of sacred things for 4 years. 2. The young men were instructed 10 days a month, the rest were devoted to meditation and deprived of the study of literature. But Diphus, so that he might have them devote themselves to literature as a subject, neglected to inquire what they were doing. With this confident negligence, they spent all the time that should have been spent in pure meditation in the city, serving their lusts, leaving some behind, who, when Diphus happened to ask where the rest were, excused themselves for their absence. They say that Jalicus went to console his mother on the death of his father. Baliards was seized with illness. And in this manner, the companions were accustomed to excuse themselves while they lived in the city in an immoderate manner. Often also the causes of contention and pleasures met in houses not far from the school, where harpists of those who were accustomed to wander about were present at almost any time. For there, since they were certain that they would find some of the students who would give themselves great and most distinguished gifts, they did not pass the house, but before setting out for the city, they spent a great deal of time in this place, then at last they entered the city. 3. When Barmerchabas entered the city, Hyracon and Gigas were with him, and Charason, indeed, whom the king had made chief of the salt trade, was not one of his disciples. Yet they often made him an equal participant in his pleasures, and so that they might not be recognized, they set out for the city at night. In the evening, therefore, Barmerchabas relates in his book, we were accustomed to enter the sailors' tavern, which is adjacent to the harbor, in order to entertain ourselves with the sailors' tales of the islands and barbarian countries. For some were islanders, others Teartesians, others born in Tenga, and some even from Ursiphonia. Therefore, we entered the tavern late at night, and, so that we might not be recognized, we changed our clothes. In this way we were completely unlike ourselves. For it seems most shameful to the Sidonians to wear sailors' clothes, yet we used them. Dressed in sailors' clothes, and both tribes and the scoundrels, of whom there was a great multitude in the court, for all that the sailors' slaves stole from the ships. They consumed in drinking in this tavern. Reclining, like the slaves, we drank the wine that was sour, for the wine was sweet and good, and no one sold it. There we heard many wonderful things about foreign things, both about the people and the countries. But when we used the same manners and manner of speaking as the sailors, they did not pay the least attention to the fact that we were not sailors, but considered us to be men of the common people and of the same rank and order as them, which if they had not been convinced of, they would have thrown us out of the tavern. For they greatly despise those born in a higher place. 4. Caupo, a most shrewd man, very often indicated to us with secret nods that he knew for certain that we were not who we professed to be. But since we were enjoying such feasts the most, we promised the man a fine garment, lest he should share them with the rest. And we were taken to provide a feast for all who were present. Then Gaphnis the merchant offered us sweet wine, and introduced the PS altaries and the dances, with whose arts we were greatly delighted all night. Gaphnis, however, kissed one of the girls, and exposed himself to the laughter of all, for as soon as his wife saw him kissing her, she strove with all her might to remove him from the girl. At other times he had been subject to his wife's command, But now, when he saw that she had mocked him for this cause, he was inflamed with anger at the woman, and said, "Away with you, for you are all in your power, but this night it has been decreed that I shall not lean on your bones." After this she departed, full of shame. 5. But a very ridiculous thing happened. For Barcephus, being drunk, pointed with his finger at the one sitting next to him, and began to cry out, "I beg you to turn your eyes to him who is vomiting." But at the same moment he also vomited, his mouth twisted. Then no one could hold back his laughter, but Barcephus was immediately overcome with sleep, and when some of those present had seen him drunk and in a stupor, he said, "Let us make a most serious mockery of him, for we will place the man dressed in the clothes of Gaphnus on his own bed. Then let us go to the drunkard, and call him by his name, and use him in every way, as if he were Gaphnus. In this way we will easily persuade Barcephus to believe that he is a tavern keeper. For even the most foolish man will not see through his foolishness." All this was seen by all, and the real Gaphnus meanwhile withdrew into a certain receptacle, from where he could both hear and see all that was done in the houses. 6. When they had done so, and with a very grave countenance, Barcephus after a little while no longer understood the exchange, and whatever he did according to the custom of Gaphnus. When they happened to be talking also about the nightly feasts, he asked from the rest where Barcephus was, he being overcome with drunkenness. Then we laughed bitterly. When we praised him for having thus chastised his wife, he said that she was not at all beautiful, but a most beautiful servant of his, whom he was going to marry. Which was very ridiculous to all. Gaphnus, however, who had heard everything in hiding, lest Barcephus should carry out the thing he had proposed to himself, secretly sent a man to the banker to inform him that Gaphnus, who had contracted a large sum of money from the banker, would not pay it, as he had sunk the greatest sums of money into feasts and women. For the night before, he had received a multitude of beggars with most liberal hospitality, and that he would spend the money that was left over on the wedding the next day. The silversmith therefore, hurrying to the tavern, since he had never seen the person of Gaphon, who was in his own money, asked those present which of them was Gaphon. He said that he was Barcephus. Then he took Gaphon, whom he had trusted, with him to the gates, where the judges delivered him over as a slave until he could pay him. But when he later said that he himself suspected that he was not Gaphon, but Barcephus, the judges did not take this speech into account, but laughed at the man. But we all, who were present in the audience, praised the judges for their exceptional justice. 7. At another time, having wandered through all parts of the city, we came across more and more men who knew how to charm snakes. They were also celebrating in songs the death of Jamilchus, over whom Sanbalus had won a victory. They also showed clay effigies of both. The figure of Jamilchus was depicted in the manner of a man prostrate and wounded and already giving up his life. Sanbalus stood by, holding a sword in his right hand, rejoicing in victory. But towards nightfall the spectators went home. Therefore also those who had interpreted the deeds of Sanbalus decided to depart, but being moved by our gift, they gladly handed over to us both those statues and the trumpet. Because of the darkness, we lit torches on a certain stone, with which, when they were brought near, those clay figures were examined, and we celebrated Cynobalus's praises with a loud voice. Then a great multitude of listeners and spectators gathered, and at first the matter went well, but a little later, the old man, having seen Hykracon approaching, announced and cried out, "We are all perished if he recognizes us." We were therefore in the greatest straits, since we could neither hide ourselves from Diphos, nor break through the close crowd and escape. In these straits, Caracin threw Sanbalus down, so that he fell into the fire with a great noise, and the flame, which had illuminated the place until then, was extinguished. Then, immediately, darkness having fallen, we escaped in hiding, but those who stood around were greatly astonished at this thing. 8. All these things are described in that book which Barmerchabas wrote about the deeds of the Sidonians. Therefore, for this reason, Sidicus ordered his disciples to go to Tyre, and the school which he had founded there, he surrounded with a wall of 8 orgies, in order to prevent them from committing atrocities. This school is situated behind the temple of Cronus in Tyre. 9. At this time a certain Asdrulus was expelled from the city of the Biblians, because he had committed many crimes. He built a citadel on the shore and plundered all the Biblians, whom he intercepted, subjecting them to the most cruel punishments. However, the townspeople, angered by this, were unable to stop him from his robberies for a long time. Now there lived in the mountains a man of great age, who had such skill in the art of healing that he could bring even the most serious wounds to health. For which reason the causes of diseases to be cured came to him from all sides. Having cast him into chains, Asdrulus took him away with him to his own citadel, and took for himself the rewards which the man received from those who had recovered by his art. Nevertheless, he did not cease to ill-treat the old man. When Adonilibnus, the man's son, heard of this, he summoned many young men to whom he distributed shorter daggers, who, having hidden their weapons in the garrison, each entered the citadel, as if to cure them. Having killed Asdrulus and all the garrison of the fortifications, they freed the old man and obtained great and famous booty, as well as many weapons and garments. This young man was named Adonilibna, whom, when he entered the city, the Senate, having chanced to die, made king, and from that time on all the kings of the Biblians have been called by the same name in turn. 10. From this Adonilibna all those who have held the kingdom of the Biblians down to our own times have derived their origin. His genealogy is as follows. Adonilibna was born of the father of Rophus. Rophus's father was Datan of Yasuda. The deeds of Adonilibna and those who reigned after him are described in the book of Corcabus. The war against the Gigantes was described by the soldier Sherodas, against the Damascenes by Chilcas, the king's scribe, but the defeat which they suffered, who had founded Tartessus in Cilicia under the leadership of Ocallathus, is recorded by Bardates the merchant, the siege of the Tyrians by Sidmon the Nebatean. However, Ocallathus was ascribed to the king. In these commentaries he explained the events to Sanchuniathon the Phoenician, the king's scribe.